I put a footnote in here. 248 times. You know, I'm gonna throw myself under a moving, they call it a Bertha in Warzone, but you could also say bus. And say that on episode 250 there'll be a little treat for the people that do watch us on YouTube. I figured out that visualizer thing. I'm still playing with it. I'm not confident in saying it's going to be ready for this one, but by 250, JJ, your visualizer will be live.
Ooh. Yeah, cool. The experiment I did with it was bad.
Yeah,
so
it's not an easy thing to do.
It's kind of shifty. This is what everyone loves to come to this podcast for. DaVinci Resolve talk.
Yes. Woohoo. You know,
tools,
it's a free program, and in this case you get much more than you pay for. So user error is probably why we're not so good at it, because we're here to have fun, you guys. This isn't for ads. This isn't for, I don't know. If DaVinci Resolve, if you want to sponsor this podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, though, if you want to have ads, we are accepting of your money. Please, bribe us.
Okay, hold on. I have to, you know what? This is a really good entry point, because I stepped in it last week, and I didn't know that I stepped in it. So now I need my wingmen to help me out for a second. I bought a SCUF Vantage 2. We talked about it last week.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think if one were to listen with open ears to what was said during that podcast, my thesis statement for having purchased that controller was that for me, it made sense to buy this exact one because it would work on the PlayStation and it would work with my PC. The two things that I have. Mm-hmm. But that I also said that the Xbox Elite 2 is a really good one that people seem to love, and I would have considered if I were an Xbox gamer, which I am currently not, because I have Xbox on my PC. Mm-hmm. So, apparently, this is a hot community to have stepped into, because SCUF haters, I'm going to say, are vocal. Very vocal. And immediately upon saying that you purchased a SCUF product and it was, for all intents and purposes, currently functional and good, they consider you to be bought and paid for. And the only way I could have a good experience with this controller was because I was on the take. And clearly I'm a liar. So, how on the take are we, you guys?
Who? I mean, I guess who? I mean, certainly not by SCUF anyway. You know, look, if you company out there listening to this podcast, first off, don't you have better things to do with your time? Mm-hmm. But second off, since you clearly don't, and you are listening to this podcast, if you want to bribe us with controllers so that we can say bad or good things about them, feel free to do that. That'd be, I mean, and I've been using this PS4 controller, but like I could use a different controller. I don't know. I'm willing to try it, right? Like, let me see.
Yeah. I think that I wanted to just say off the top, since we were talking about sponsorships and all that, and there was a not verbal. Verbal is the wrong word for an email. There was a kerfuffle over saying that I liked something made by SCUF. That even if someone had sent me a controller, I would not hesitate to say that it was bad. I don't care. I don't do this for money.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if they had sent us the controller, which they did not, we would have the ability to tell them it sucked because they didn't require us to do anything to get the controller.
It's bad. It's bad. It feels bad. That's not is bad. It feels bad because we spent like 2 years doing component classes. And then that entire time, I said everything that I purchased. But they would only have, all those components would only have ever worked together if you bought the exact computer I did. So every time we did component class, it was very clear that I said, do your own research and pick something that works with the parts that you want. Like, we were just talking about what we did. And this is what I did. I bought a controller. And in 2 weeks, you might be right, Mr. Angry Emailer. It might stop working. It also might not stop working. They're a large company that make a lot of controllers. I'm sure not all of them are broken. And again, I know, right? You'd think they would be out of business.
But like also, I mean, who knows? But like also, you know, maybe it will be, right? And if it breaks, I am sure we will hear Andrew back on this podcast agreeing with this emailer loudly and in charge that he hates this thing and wants it to burn in the fires of the sun. But it sounds like currently he's loving using it. So what is there to say? I mean, it's my
experience. That's all I'm saying,
right?
Is what my experience was. And my exact statement was, if you're going to spend a bunch of money on like a mechanical keyboard to game with, right? And you're thinking about what you're going to play on a controller, you don't have to play on the cheapest thing. You could. JJ uses a PS4 controller. And it works great, I'm sure.
And I used a PS3 controller for years.
I used Xbox 360 controllers for years, but the change to a premium controller, any premium controller, was all I was saying was maybe something people should consider. Go do whatever. If you don't like SCUF, find a different brand. I don't care.
Yeah, man. We're not like out here giving advice that is like the end of the discussion. We don't know.
Yeah. I got another question about the controller. Yes, you can rebind the paddles hardware. You don't have to do it on the computer. So if you buy one, Alex, you can on the controller rebind what the paddles are for. So you can you don't have to do it only on the PC. You can use it on your PS4. This one's I think they only make them for PS4 so far. And you would still be able to rebind them for your PS system because it's on this little button. There you go. I don't know. Cool. I don't feel attacked, but I feel like people get too angry about personal experiences. You know?
I mean, people get mad online.
That's true. And I'm sorry that somebody had a bad experience. Although I did some research after this email, and the dog pile is significant on the SCUF people, and I would consider most of these people dogpiling probably have never even owned one, because they're expensive to own. No one's just buying them for no reason. You know what I mean? I don't know. We could stop. Hey, since that was a mini component class, I have component class follow up here. Dust your computer.
Okay. Oh yeah,
I just did that recently.
Yeah. Right. What is your dust capture situation on that PC?
Trying to remember what I used.
Does the dust capture itself inside the PC?
So, I mean, they're on the bottom where the fan is for my PCU. There's a filter. There is that one's removable, so you can clean it. There's a filter on the front that's permanent, which is where the intake is. I think that's all that there is in terms of passive filtering that's on my box.
I noticed when I moved to the new office setup here, I moved my computer onto my desk, and it seemed like it was louder than when I built it. And I opened it up, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't dusted it ever. Look at this." My bottom.
Mm-hmm. Those filters collect faster than you think.
Those filters collect really fast. And my fans are already a little dirty too. It concerns me. I got to go in there and like clean it out.
Michael, have you looked really closely at that filter on the front of your computer? Are you sure it's not removable? Sometimes they're removable, but in like sneaky ways out the bottom and stuff.
I could double check, but I checked for that to see if there was like a panel on the bottom, and I couldn't find one that was easily accessible.
Because I know I had this same thought. I have a case that has some filters. There's one on the bottom, there's one on the back for the power supply, and then there's one on the front. And there's like half of one on the top. It doesn't really actually have a filter there for part of it. But the bottom one does slide out in a very tricky way that I did not realize the first time I cleaned it, and so like thought it didn't have a removable one when it totally did.
Huh. I should double check.
Nice.
But yeah, mine's deceptive. It has cosmetic fake bolts on the front that look like you can take them off to get to the filter.
I had to remember that the front plate of my computer was like magnetized in some places, but had catches in others. So I was trying to like peel it off from the top when really you have to like pull it up from the bottom. Yeah.
Oops.
It's okay. But man,
yeah, gotta get in that thing
with everything you've got. Okay, so I bought these expensive-ish fans. I'm only in context of normal fans. They were not that much money, but Q-tips, you think?
So depend like how
the blade leading edges are getting a little dust.
If you just use like a can of compressed air, would it all just blow off, or do you think you need to?
It would probably blow off of there, but then it's blowing around in the computer, right?
Right, but like as small particulates, it will then blow out with the rest of the air, right? That's what you are hoping for.
True.
Yeah, I think I might have just gone with a paper towel rather than using the compressed air. I thought about it.
Yeah, it's already significantly quieter, so I'll wait until the next round of cleaning before I like crack open the interior. I just did the exterior, but if you build a nice PC, maybe set up on your phone like a couple months cleaning schedule every couple months, because this has been.
I think it doesn't even need to be that frequent. Probably every 6 months is good if you have filters on stuff. I guess though, if you don't, if it's more open, then you might want to do it more frequently.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let's get off of this defensive posture that we started on and go on the offense.
Cleaning
JJ.
is just cleaning is just good in general. What's up?
Let's go on offense, JJ. Michael, I'm sorry you were at work on Friday.
Yeah, it's always
JJ
a shame.
and I cracked a beer, and
I was peer pressured into drinking in the middle of the day.
JJ, I am sure there was much arm twisting going on to get you to open up a beer.
I didn't want to do it. I said I didn't want to do it, and Andrew said, "Come on," and then I did it.
That guy.
That guy, man.
I just brought up the point that at that point of a BlizzCon, we would already,
which is literally barely seconds into it,
we would have already had a beer.
And he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
It's sharing one beer through the internet for the entirety of what will be our BlizzCon pretty much seemed appropriate.
Yep.
And I just made that case, and then the defenses crumbled.
He's not wrong.
Token defenses.
He had level 1 towers.
Didn't put up a hard fight. Yeah, they were. Wasn't going to win that one.
BlizzCon was on Friday, and well, it was Friday and Saturday if you watched some panels, but all the announcements happened on Friday, or at least I think all the announcements happened on Friday. I haven't checked back in.
They did.
You know, it started off with a video of people playing video games, and it was kind of that the entire time in terms of, I think it did not have lofty goals, this online BlizzCon. And so it was good that it was online, because you and I got to talk through the whole thing instead of annoying everyone around us.
I think if, in a different world where COVID didn't happen and this was in person, I think people would have said this was a terrible year.
Do you think that if COVID hadn't happened, they would have had this literal statement at the end, we're doing a lot of stuff, but we're not going to tell you about it yet? Or would they have
Certainly
would they have
not.
shown something?
Certainly not. Yeah, I still don't think they would have shown anything because I think even without COVID, they wouldn't have had anything to show here. And so I think no matter what, this was going to be just a light year. And because I think Overwatch 2 is farther off than people think that it is.
Very clearly.
And Diablo 4 is way farther off than people think that it is, right? People are like, oh, well, maybe it's coming in 22. Dude, no.
Yeah,
highly
you'd
doubtful.
be lucky if you see Overwatch 2 in 22 at this point.
Yeah. I mean, look, I have no idea what it's like working there. Maybe it's great and all ready to go. Who knows? But I doubt it. And so I just think there was just never going to be anything to show this year.
What's sad about not being in person is we don't get to see the people around us going crazy for things that we are not reacting to. Yeah.
Don't understand. Yeah. The 5-minute World of Warcraft trailer that I think I went to the bathroom during is not seeing people lose their minds at how cool some of that looks some years is
likely due to COVID. There was only one. No, there were no full cinematic trailers for anything. Everything was in-engine cinematics.
The only one was
in
Diablo,
engine,
right? And
Did
they say that?
It better have been in engine because that is a Blizzard cinematic. Something bad has happened over there.
Yikes!
The textures on that
regardless
were worse
all of
than
the
in the game.
Regardless, all of the trailers and stuff that they put out had a lower quality bar, I think, than anything that they've done in the past. Which
I chalk it up to not being in the office, but there's that little devil on your shoulder that says, "Is this the Activision creep?" You know,
is this the cost cutting?
It's hard to know. We'll get to the cost cutting at the end. Okay, let's just walk through it real quick. Hearthstone's getting an overhaul.
They are going full Magic the Gathering, and well, I don't know about that, but they are doing. I guess they're not going full Magic the Gathering because they're not charging for it like Magic does. So, Hearthstone is taking the basic and the classic set of
cards that people get.
Right, the vast majority of free cards, and then the evergreen set that they've had that's around for forever, moving all of those cards to Wild, which is their non-rotating eternal format, and then introducing a new core set of cards that include some cards from those sets, but also some cards from other various sets, and some small subset of new cards that they are then giving to everyone for free.
Cool. Good for them.
It's like it's a large number of cards, like 300 or something. So it is a lot of change to the Hearthstone format. And then they have said that core set is going to change. I don't know if they said every year. I think they said that. I could be wrong though. Which is great. I think that'll shake the game up a ton and is a great change for that game that it probably needed 2 years ago.
I think it's likely that along with adding more single player and adding these new mercenary mechanics that they're coming up with, they're trying to go for a full. I was 20% interested, which is more than I expected to be.
Yeah, it seems interesting, and that the mercenary mode, as you brought it up, sounds like a barely a Hearthstone game.
Yeah,
it almost sounds like a Slay the Spire type game or something. But they didn't really show any of it at all, so it's hard to know.
Michael, if you had the opportunity to play a game that came out in 2000-ish and then play the expansion for it,
I could be interested in that.
Classic WoW is adding Burning Crusade.
Oh, about time.
See, Burning Crusade would have been 2004.
Burning Crusade would have been just previous to my graduation from college, so 2006 maybe.
6?
Maybe a little earlier, so 5 or 6, because then.
Yeah, it definitely was earlier because I was playing
after
it, right,
Burning Crusade.
Still there.
No,
there was quite a. No. After Burning Crusade was
Who cares?
Wrath
Yes,
of the Lich
Wrath
King.
of the Lich King. You were still playing, so that was still college.
Yeah. And that was the last one
Yeah.
I played.
Okay. Well, anyway, Burning Crusade. They're doing a cool thing. I have to shout it out. Being able now in Classic WoW, you can just tell the server what version of the game you want to play. So if you don't want to play the expansion, it won't make you.
It is per character, I believe, not even getting to pick. So you can say this is going to be a non-expansion character, or this is going to be a vanilla classic character, or a Burning Crusade classic character, and you get to have that choice. Which I wonder then, will they allow people to do that for every classic expansion going forward?
Yeah.
Like, till eventually the drop down is like 10 long and you have like, ooh, I want a classic expansion number 7 character, but not number 8. I didn't like that one.
2035's problem.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
D4 looks like they're going to be 4 more years off, and they added a rogue, which everyone knew they were going to add.
Yeah, man. You know, whatever. Cool. Look, as we said when 2 years ago or whenever it was that we first saw D4, that seems cool. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like when they make a game.
You know what else seems cool? And I'm curious if any of... JJ was burned. I don't know if we need to do any convincing or if Michael's going to get on this train. D2 Resurrected.
Resurrected. Yeah.
Did you play Diablo 2? I know Mike. I know JJ and I did.
No, I never got into any of the Diablo games.
But now you can get into the best
D2
one.
Resurrected sounds like the time for you.
Okay.
This game was made, it seems, a lot by Vicarious Visions, the now Blizzard support studio or whatever they're calling it.
And they've just been folded in now?
Yes. One of the panels I watched about D2 Remaster had a joke of like, this game has been overseen by Diablo veterans. Look at the number of years of experience we have on this panel. And they like, there are 4 people, right? They go, the first guy, he's like, I've been at Blizzard for like 10 years. The next guy is, I've been there for like 15 years. I've been there for like 8 years. And the last guy is the D2 Remastered lead. And he's like, what day of the week is it? It's like, I think it's like a week and a half. I don't know.
Vicarious Visions did...
And then his joke was that before this, I was at Vicarious Visions for like 12 years.
I mean, they did Tony Hawk. They're not a nobody company.
The Tony Hawk remaster, by all accounts, from people who really like Tony Hawk, said that game was awesome. And so they really loved that remaster. They said it was faithful to those games in the ways they wanted it to be. It played right. And from the video and stuff that they showed at these panels and the stuff they talked about, they are doing this in the right way.
Hopefully. A lot of Skylanders and then Crash Bandicoot remaster.
Okay.
Yeah. So this game, the Diablo 2 Resurrected, is Diablo 2 with a coat of paint on top. They made very, very few changes, like nearly none. They tried as much as is possible to keep the gameplay exactly the same, down to the point where like the original Diablo 2 code is running under the hood somewhere, they have said in a lot of places.
You should play with a keyboard instead of a mouse?
Well, it is coming to consoles. However, they didn't make like a bunch of concessions to the consoles because they have said that there is still an item grid. Like you still have to move your items around in your inventory to make them fit because that's part of the game and they couldn't get rid of it. Like they're not going to add an item auto sort, right? It's just going to go into your inventory where it would go.
Okay.
They did make the inventories a little bigger because in order to make the UI fit on a widescreen TV and monitor, they needed to make them bigger, and they thought that no one is going to complain having slightly more space.
Fair. Yeah.
They did add a shared stash, which is like, I know I'm getting into the weeds here, but like this is like a shared stash is like everyone used mule characters in Diablo 2, right? You like had characters you would go and trade your stuff to. The shared stash was the
thing everyone cheered for at BlizzCon when they announced D3.
Yes, exactly. So like it's fine, right? No one is going to complain about this. It's not going to destroy anything about the game. But there was other stuff that they like looked at and were like, we should probably change this because it sucks. But then they were like, we can't because it's part of Diablo 2, right? So they're like, oh, we made some like advanced stat pages and stuff. And then they're like, well, like we're not sure we want to like we have a page that rolls up all your stats, right? And just displays the totals. It's like, oh, your magic find is this number, your total is this and this and this, right? But that's just stuff you could do yourself if you had a calculator and you wrote down this piece is 31 and this piece is 17 and blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
But they also had like more advanced statistics that they could do, but they weren't part of the game. So like, so we didn't implement those, right? It's like, you guys aren't just going to do the, like, you're going to make us still do the math, right? Like but that's not how the game was, right? And so they said that was kind of always their thing, was like they wanted to, this isn't a remake, right? This is a remaster.
As best as they can.
And they wanted.
As best as they can.
Right. And to the point where you can hit a button and, you know, like the Halo games, you can hit a button and see all the old sprites and stuff running on the screen if you want. And, you know, then you can turn it back off and then now it's a 3D game again with 3D lighting.
Did this assuage your Warcraft 3 trauma?
I mean, it doesn't. So again, it's hard to know though, right? Because weren't those initial showings they did of Warcraft 3 Reforged, didn't it look awesome?
Claim in Warcraft 3, right? Everything they're saying about this was the claim for Warcraft 3 is exactly the way you remember it. And then the second time out, it was like, well, we're changing some stuff. And then the third time out, we were like, what are we looking at here?
Yeah. And I think this project looks like they looked at that Warcraft 3 project and were like, this went bad. We can't do this again.
No.
And they're like, okay. Because the thing that I remember, right, when they initially promised that Warcraft 3 game was the initial thing they said was like, we are remaking this game, right? We're going to redo all these cinematics in a more updated style, use new models, you know, new camera angles, new all this stuff to make it look cinematic again and cool, right? Like remake the game, right? And then they didn't do that at all. They remastered the game, where they just took all the models and up-resed them and then like taped them on top of the lower running polygons so that they look pretty, but then still act like
Warcraft
I wish
3,
you
could
right?
see like tape edges around the characters. That'd be great.
Kind of though, right? Like, and so then that is like, well, that's a fundamentally different game than you guys were promising at the outset. And that's fine. And I'm sure that's great for people who really loved Warcraft 3 and like wanted to still play regular old Warcraft 3. Except then they also promised all this other stuff that they never delivered on, and then screwed up the online in a bunch of ways that people hate, and all sorts of other things.
Changed the story.
Yeah, sure. Then they went in and made a bunch of like pointless changes to lore and story that like no one was happy about, right? It's like, just don't make those changes if you're preserving the game. And so this one seems like they came in and they were like, all right, we messed up. We're not going to promise anything other than preserving the game and then putting fancy graphics on top of it.
And also, yes, in this, they said they messed up in the last one, right? And then they did this. But they mentioned that phone game too, which surprised me. Which was like, how do you go out there that bravely? I guess because there's no audience to react to it. You go out there that bravely and be like, the phone game's doing well. You're like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And the guy that ran the phone game was there, and he was like, yeah, I've been working at Blizzard for all this time, and we were really, disappointed to see that initial reaction. And, so we went and back working, adding all these things to the game and blah, blah, blah. And like that phone game, they showed videos of it in the panel too. Hey, it still looks like Diablo 3. Like it. I think pretty sure that's that game, but on a phone.
If you hooked up like a PS4 controller to your phone, that might be all right.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's just hard to see so much stuff on it. It's just so hard to see on a phone.
Yeah. But I'm sure that is one of the things that they're working on, right? They want to be able to make it so that you can see what's going on. But regardless, I think I have not really much interest in the phone game.
Nobody does. Not in this country.
And I mean, none of the people that we know apparently do. So great. But I'm cautiously optimistic about that D2 remaster. The other thing, though, they said is that the D2 remaster is coming out this year. Unlike the Warcraft 3 Reforged, which they announced like 2.5 years before it came out, this one they're like, yeah, actually this year.
Well, it's being made by a different studio, so.
Even if Blizzard time befalls them and they release, middle next year, that's still like 2 years faster than they did Warcraft 3 Reforged.
And then they didn't happen to mention literally anything about Overwatch in the main show.
Yeah, really weird, because apparently they did have a bunch of stuff to say about it in the Overwatch panels. Yeah. They talked about, they're working on adding lots of single player missions because they felt that if they were going to have a single player mode, it would be not fun for people to have to constantly grind the same single player missions over and over. They talked about the changes they want to bring to the competitive scene and a bunch of like how the Overwatch 2 stuff is going to filter back into Overwatch 1 in terms of like the competitive game. They talked about like, hey, we want to add new map types, things that like aren't not just like, oh, new maps in the same way that Overwatch maps are, where there's like checkpoints and all that stuff. They want to do completely new types of maps, stuff that hasn't been done before. They want to get rid of the 2 checkpoint map in competitive Overwatch, because apparently that stuff is extremely hated.
It's surprising to not have had.
So there was stuff to say. I just why not mention it? Yeah, I think there were no character announcements, nothing on that level, but I think the information of like we want to add a ton of single player content is like worth putting in the main thing. I want to know that
because that's the only way I'm getting on an Overwatch train again. Okay, so Michael, you heard. I mean, they're still working on that many games and normal WoW. We didn't even talk about normal WoW, but they're still working on that too.
Sure. And they showed a thing for that. So then
this guy, J. Allen Brack, gets up there at the end and gives you 2 different statements. 1, we're doing all this stuff that we just talked about. A lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We're doing all this stuff, but we're doing way more stuff than this that we can't tell you about. Is statement number 1. Statement number 2. Statement number 1. Statement number 2. Only a small percentage of the employees are working on these projects. Everyone else is working on the future of Blizzard. First of all, my questions to you. How does a company who's hired just enough people to service the games that they make and possibly have 1 extra development team that has never shown another game since Overwatch have all of a sudden only tiny teams working on it and restructured the entire company with nobody having leaked it to the press so that everyone can work on the future of Blizzard and only a small number of people can do this? And 2, how do you square that with the very public, gigantic layoffs you've been doing?
That's like, yeah.
I need an outside perspective because I laid it out as clearly as I could, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't make much sense to me.
I mean, you 2 work at more traditional companies. That's not how companies work.
So I think if they had done a giant restructuring of the company completely internally, it would have leaked. But I think the fact that they laid off like many people recently means they probably did do some amount of restructuring back at that time, right? I can't imagine that there are hundreds of people employed by Blizzard Entertainment working on some
non-revenue
secret game
project
that they some like pie in the sky thing that they've never shown or never talked about. I feel that there are always small teams at these video game companies doing those kinds of things, right? And like small, I mean like 5 people or whatever. But that's how all companies work, right? The R&D team is like 6 people, and then there's 400 other people all working on the, like, you know, giant important other things. So maybe he was like being disingenuous and then just including all the like support staff and other people that don't directly work on games there.
I don't want to accuse him of being
know.
disingenuous, but those are lofty statements to throw out there at the end of your pref, sir, with, let's say, no conviction and no evidence.
I mean, like saying, "Oh, we're working on this stuff, but we can't show you," is always a like dubious thing to say, right?
Yeah.
Because by the very nature of that statement means you can't ever back it up.
Go out on a limb and say, as a PR person, I would never have let that statement out the door. Because next year, if you don't have something major to show, and I mean major because you said most of your studio is working on something else, someone's going to clip it from your current one and be like, what about this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you do is you should come out and say, but like, we're working on many other things at Blizzard too. And I'm sure you'll see them sometime in the future or whatever. That way you can say, oh, I didn't say when in the future. And
Right,
so
sure.
no matter what,
You know who else?
Yeah.
5 years later,
You know who else had
like,
similar
oh,
vibes, but at least you kind of get the idea as to why, was Nintendo. Similar
little bit,
vibe, but
yeah.
I think it's clear Nintendo. You guys should recap their direct after I say this, but it's clear Nintendo is struggling with work at home.
So, well, I think Nintendo gave themselves kind of an out because they set it up right from the beginning that the direct was only going to be Q1 and Q2 releases.
Okay, you're in the midst of celebrating your Mario anniversary, and the 35th anniversary of Zelda comes up, and the acknowledgement in the direct is Zelda's had a birthday.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they're going to have a whole separate 35th anniversary thing for Zelda. I don't think they're going to let that go by without doing anything more than that.
You guys, they announced the remake of everyone's favorite Zelda game, Skyward Sword, that people definitely don't hate a ton and actually really don't like. Isn't this what you wanted? Remakes?
I'll play it.
I mean, it's actually not a terrible remake because they give you the option now to not use motion controls. You can play it with just a straight controller.
That's why I called it a remake instead of a remaster.
You can still waggle the controllers if you want.
You can if you want to.
If you don't, you have to waggle the sticks on the controllers.
Which I think is going to be a really fascinating way. Like, it's a clever way of addressing how you make that transition from motion controls to a controller. But I think it's also going to make for some interesting gameplay. It is very
similar to a game I just tried to play earlier called Unto the End. And like in that game, you move one of the sticks up and down to parry with your sword. That's literally it, right? I'll say it's hard.
Okay. I mean, I believe
the
that
timing
seems
on
reasonable.
Moving a stick is hard. I'm guessing because it's a Nintendo game, it's going to be a little more friendly than this other game.
I don't think and maybe I haven't actually played it, so maybe I'm completely wrong, but I don't think Skyward Sword was considered difficult, was it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I started it, but the motion controls kind of frustrated me, so I never actually wound up finishing it. Flailing my arms around, only for him to not swing the sword where I was swinging the Wiimote. Can't imagine why that would have been frustrating.
Attach the extra Wii Plus dongle to the end of your remote.
Oh, I didn't have to. I had the fancier ones out of the box. Yeah.
It's probably because you didn't have your wrist strap securely tightened, Michael. That was certainly
that might have been the problem. Too much circulation in my hand.
Yeah, there was a chance that your Wiimote could have come off and hit your TV. So that Nintendo knew and was just shutting you down.
Yeah. Rip, we have a problem.
I think the bigger thing is, why did they put that guy out in front of that Zelda thing to be like, we know you're all expecting to hear about Breath of the Wild 2. Surprise, we got nothing. Why do that to that man? It's like literally hanging him out to dry.
Connection that I was talking about.
I think it's again that you're not in front of an audience, so you can do that without him like having tomatoes hurled at him by an angry mob.
Heckled off the stage. I get you have to say something because I'm sure people would be like, what the heck, where is this game?
Oh, absolutely.
But like you put that up in a slide, man, and you just have the slide say, Breath of the Wild is coming, not this year. Whatever. Expect to hear more eventually, and then move on, right? You don't have to like throw that man completely under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And then have to talk about why Skyward Sword is so beloved because it. Remember that Breath of the Wild you guys like? This game came before it. It's like yeah, really?
Look,
wow,
it's almost like they're similar.
It has things in it that we made better in Breath of the Wild.
Play Breath of the Wild and its sequel.
Yeah. That whole video is actually really funny. I think people should go watch it. Like, I don't know. Maybe look, play Skyward Sword if you like it. I don't know. I haven't played it. Maybe I will like it this version. I'm gonna wait for it to come out though.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got to say about it.
I mean, did you have other
Nintendo
Direct stuff that wasn't as ridiculous as that moment that I had to bring up?
Oh yeah, so they are porting over Legend of Mana, PS1 classic JRPG, which I think it's the first time it's on a Nintendo platform, which is kind of unusual because most of the Mana games are available for Nintendo consoles at this point.
Yep. Yeah, this was a PS1 Squaresoft joint.
Yeah, this one will be interesting. I did a little bit of reading about this one after the fact because I didn't know anything about it. Apparently, there is a very obscure crafting system in this game.
This game is so weird. I played this on PS1. It's a weird game, dude.
From the things I was reading, there seemed to be some split in the community over whether they should fix it or whether it should be as hard as it was when I played it back in my day.
I suspect, given what this looked like, is that they're just gonna not change it. Am I right?
That's what it seems like. Yeah, new soundtrack, new graphics, but it didn't seem like they were planning on tinkering with the underlying systems.
That's for the best.
I think it probably is. People should play that game. It's so weird. Build your own world map. It's a whole thing. It's really weird.
Yeah, it definitely seemed out there.
The problem with these games is that no one will appreciate, because it's on a Switch in front of them, they'll be like, oh, this is all right. But they won't appreciate what it meant for that to be on a PS1.
The funny thing is that because it's a sprite game, it looked good on the PS1.
Oh,
like
yeah.
They didn't have the like janky polygons like the PS1 had in a lot of cases. But it also is like, if you go look at like PS1 games now played on like a high-res TV, you're going to be like, oh God, the pixels. I can see every edge. It's horrible. So I imagine they had to do a bunch of artwork on this to make it not look terrible, because the videos looked quite nice.
Yeah, they did.
If people are into Pokemon, you can take some pictures. I remember that from the Direct. Pokemon Snap is coming back.
Yeah.
It's integrated with Go somehow. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm trying to think what else. Mario Golf.
Oh yeah, that was the big one.
There's a new Mario Golf. That was the big one. Super Rush.
Mario Golf, original Mario Golf, and I think the Game Boy one are well regarded.
It's a GameCube.
Oh, there's one I think
right?
for each console generation. At least Wii, maybe not Wii U.
Was there a Mario Golf?
There was a golf game. Maybe it was Wii Sports that I'm remembering.
I think it was Wii Sports that you're thinking of.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a GameCube game though. I'm like 99% sure there's a GameCube one. Anyway, whatever. This looks alright. I don't know.
I sat there thinking about this actually after it came out. There wasn't one for the Wii. There was one for the 3DS though.
Yeah, and there was one for the GameCube.
Okay.
Man, I sat there and thought about this. There are 12 of these games? This is why I don't do research. I don't know. I played the N64 one for sure, and I played the Game Boy one for sure, and I really liked them.
I think the Mario sport games are generally well regarded.
Yeah.
Like the tennis one, I think is liked. The soccer one, I know people like that Mario soccer one. What is it, Mario Strikers?
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure that's liked.
Those games were good when there wasn't as much to do, and I wonder, like, will the golf get old on a modern? How do you make the golf not get old when there's so many other things out there to play now?
People buy Madden NFL every year. How do you make the football not get old?
I mean, but there hasn't been Mario Golf every year. It's not a stayed yearly franchise with real life players that people are, the
right, because the idea of golfing with like without that, the pull of your team and all that stuff is not something you can do every year because it does get old. But once every 5 years, you can do some Mario golfing. That'd be fun.
Because it looks fun. It looks interesting. You can put your Mii's in it, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I just wonder what the hook is for this to be anything more than a graphical update to the N64 game that we all like. You know what I mean?
They've got a couple of new modes. It's got online multiplayer.
That might be a big one.
I think that's the big one.
That could
right?
be a big
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with the speed mode.
I didn't know. Well, part of the video, I missed it.
Where you basically it almost combines golf with Mario Kart in that you are literally racing to finish holes as fast as you possibly can, and everyone's playing at the same time. And there are power-ups that you can grab to like hit the ball harder and run faster, or like turn you into Ice Mario so you can skate along the grass.
It's the great idea of like, what if it was golf, but everyone just hit the ball at the same time, and
it turns into a party game,
and you don't have to worry about murdering someone with a golf ball,
Mario Golf,
right? Because it's Mario.
Mario Golf Party.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that part in the online multiplayer is probably the best looking thing in the game. Everything else kind of just looked like golf.
They'll certainly be the hook for these games, because I think the rest of it is just sort of building on the Mario Golf that it was super popular with all the previous iterations.
Yeah, I'm not trying to bag on it. I think people like these games and they play it. Good for them. I'm trying to find the hook for me to play it because I want to, but I'm afraid of getting bored.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people like those everybody's golf games. And those aren't yearly, but they're not far, like maybe every couple years or whatever. And those are just like, it's just golf, but you have like avatar characters that you can dress up or whatever. So this feels like, you're probably in that vein. And then you also could be Mario or Yoshi or whatever, or, insert your Mii that looks like a crab or whatever.
I think the smartest thing they did was to retain the motion control, though. So you can still play swinging your Switch controller like a golf glove. Poorly. No, of course not. Wrist straps all around.
Yeah, I mean, they have wrist straps on the Joy-Cons. I'm sure it'll be fine.
I don't even know where the wrist straps for my Joy-Cons are. That's probably not good.
I think the wrist straps come on that little thing you slide on them when you take them off, right?
Do.
Which I'm sure you use and definitely don't forget every single time you take them off, right?
Okay. I don't know if we have enough time, but we could start a discussion of it and then pick it up next week when another episode comes out. Michael, you finally caught up on WandaVision.
We have. We caught up yesterday.
Not super long episodes. There are some that are longer than others. Did everyone catch that there was an after credit scene in the most recent episode?
Yes.
No. We will have to go back and rewatch.
There we go. We won't talk about that. Although I'm not sure there's really a spoiler that happens in there. Not really.
Yeah, not really, right? Yeah. It's like a stinger. It really doesn't. Yeah.
Spoiler warning.
So I guess
I'm not even gonna try. So spoiler warning.
Yeah.
If you're not caught up on WandaVision,
just spoiler warnings.
You should. If you have invested the time to at least watch those movies, you should watch this.
Yeah, I think if you haven't seen the movies, this is a more questionable.
I agree.
Proposition.
Yeah, and give it a couple of episodes too.
So I guess this is like really divisive, and I am kind of shocked by this. People really don't like those first few episodes of this show.
3-ish, 2 to 3, and I was like, I'm gonna stick it out. It's interesting enough that I'll stick it out. And somebody told me that it might not have a season 2 per se, that it might just be a one and done kind of deal. So I was like, I'll just stick it out then. Whatever. I like Marvel enough. I like these characters enough. Paul Bettany could act in a paper bag, and I would watch it.
I was just gonna say, man, he's so good.
Literally, I would. Yeah. Anyway, and then episode 4 hit. I don't know if it was the same for you, Michael, but episode 4 was for me the moment where I was like, well, this is good.
It started to get me in episode 3, I think.
Yeah.
I really liked the first one and the second one as like, okay, these are very funny parodies of
the problem with those
sitcoms.
Was that I was worried that that's all we were in for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like seeing it in the moment, right? I think I came to it like a week late. So I had the first 2 to watch at once. And I was like, okay, if this is all this show is, and it's just a bunch of like send-ups of old sitcoms throughout the years or whatever, I'm okay with this. It's not like gonna rate highly on my list of best TV ever, but I'm okay with this. And then like, episode 4 comes around and it takes like a pretty drastic turn. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm way in.
Yeah. Right. So the sort of the other side of the coin from you, JJ, was that the complaint from my other half was that she watched all of those, especially in those first 2 episodes, all the shows that they were sending up.
Yeah.
And liked them way more than the parody that they were doing of them. And so that turned her off. She was
offended at the references.
No, she just didn't think that
I don't think they were supposed to land well now that I've seen more episodes. Exactly.
Well, sure, yeah, but you don't know that at the time.
Yes, I agree with that.
I think I think that's so hilarious that someone loved I Love Lucy and what was the second one? The Bewitched and
Dick Van Dyke was the first one.
Yeah. Dick Van Dyke, Bewitched, and like the Brady Bunch so much that they really couldn't stand the idea of parodying them. The shows are like almost parody now when you watch it, like themselves.
Yeah, but it actually prompted an interesting discussion, which was that if you don't have any history with those old shows, which a lot of the younger crowd who's watching this will not, how does that change the way they land? Like that first episode in particular, if you don't have any connection to the Dick Van Dyke Show and you don't know that that show is going anywhere, what does that first episode really have for you?
I think so I have a point on this, but I think even if you haven't seen like Dick Van Dyke in particular, because I don't think I knew that it was specifically about Dick Van Dyke, but I'd seen a bunch of like old I Love Lucy and other ones that are like in that vein from the 50s era, right?
Sure, I Love Lucy reference.
Right. And so like I was still okay with it, right? Like I took it as like, hey, this is like old sitcoms of this era. But I think you're completely right, Michael. I was talking about this show with a coworker and he specifically called out, this show has a laugh track. I hate it. I turned it off.
No.
Yeah. He's like, I turned off the first episode. I heard them have a laugh track. I'm like, this is stupid, and turned it off. I'm like, you are a fool, my man. Go watch the show. And he's like, no, I'm not going to listen to a show with a laugh track. And he's like, wouldn't hear about it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. With no point of reference for what they're trying to do, are they going to lose some people? And
I
that
think they
sounds like
lost people
absolutely.
anyway when it was like, wait a minute, I don't understand. I saw the end of that thing. I don't understand what's happening here. This is all very confusing. I guarantee you they lost people that were confused also because they weren't explaining that there was a mystery happening.
Yeah, and I had to explain to some friends about like, no, just like, I understand you're confused, but just go with it. They'll explain what you need to know. You don't need to do any like character backstory research because they're already playing fast and loose with the character timelines anyway.
I think I think the show did itself a disservice by coming out week by week. Unlike some of the other Disney Plus shows that have done a good job, like Mandalorian and some other ones where they do like one episode a week, I think this one was hurt very badly by not having like the first 4 episodes out at once.
Yeah, at least the first 4 so that people could get to that 4th episode and be like, aha, I knew it, you know, or like,
what's actually going on.
Because
there
are people that went into this. You have to discount the people that went into this knowing that WandaVision's source material exists, right? Like, this is not coming out of nowhere.
Sure.
So you dismiss that crowd because they're in, right? And so you have to go to the crowd that's not all the way in, which is maybe some of us. I think that I would have convinced myself to watch it, but I could easily have lost my spouse, who has not watched every single Marvel movie, right? Luckily the explanation is easy enough when you say, okay, so this is all a mystery because this and this have happened. That's it. Like, you could explain it in that short of a sentence.
Right.
The real question is if that grabs people enough, and I don't know, JJ, if putting it all out at the same time would do it. Because you still have to get to that 4th one.
I think I think knowing. So the thing that I think got people, right, is, or where I'm coming from with this, I think the thing that got people is the first episode comes out, people watch it and they're like, I kind of didn't like this. And they go to the internet and like look for other people to agree with them, right? And then that's the echo chamber starts there. And then it has to last through 3 weeks of that till they get to the 4th one. And then everyone on the internet's like, oh, this is great now. And meanwhile, they stopped watching after week 2, right? So like if the 4 episodes were out, then they would have seen at the end, oh, but it gets good at the end. And then everyone would have been like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go watch it. And then they too may have had the chance to get hooked. I don't know. Who knows? I'm not I'm not an executive. I'm not a TV guy. I have no idea. That's just my uninformed opinion.
Yeah. Well,
I really like this show, man. I will be happy to talk about it way more with both of you.
How many episodes is it? Do we know?
When we have some more time.
Oh, that's a good question.
I have to do the research because I'm curious.
It can't be more than
seem
like 10
they're
or 12.
at the point. I mean, they've introduced who I thought was coming.
They got it.
They got to
be wrapping stuff up.
Wrapping.
Here,
9. Okay, so
9.
That makes some sense.
That
makes some sense.
Tracks.
I bet you it ties into some of the movies or something.
Yeah.
Can't tie in too much because can't trust the people watch the show.
Yeah, just like how they do with everything, right? They just have to dangle a little bit there, and the guy can walk in and say the name of the village, and then that's all you have to know, right?
Yep.
Like, where were you during this, Westview? It was a whole thing. Anyway, what's up, Thor?
Watch
like,
Johnny
that's all you
Woo
got to do, right?
Do an X-Files.
I think he is secretly, and not even secretly, he's like maybe my second favorite character in the whole show.
Who's your first
I
favorite?
Like that guy.
Oh, okay. It's not fair to say Vision because you're just saying it because Paul Bettany's so good.
But isn't that not a good enough reason?
Yeah, wait, what, Andrew? Come on.
How is that not a good enough reason?
Because then we all pick the same thing. It's
sure, but he gives the best performance. So
the uniformly best actor
mile
in the thing doesn't get to
by a mile. That guy is so good.
So good.
And not to
There's so many
discredit
good
or to
so many good parts.
just because we say someone is very good and much better than everyone else around him does not mean to knock other people, right? Like Usain Bolt may blow people. What's that?
Elizabeth
Sorry.
Olsen is great.
Oh yeah, she does. She's
Elizabeth Olsen
fantastic.
does great.
The kids do great too. You know, all of it's good. Catherine Hahn is great.
Oh, yeah.
She's fantastic. Catherine Hahn's great.
Catherine very good. I want to shout out the people in either the writing or the cinematography group that came up with all the shots that are like just off-brand enough sitcom to not get sued.
Whatever. Disney will just buy them.
Yes.
They probably even own all these sitcoms at this point.
They certainly own some of them, but like I'm pretty sure they don't own all of the like 90s Friends references
Sure.
and all the other stuff that they made.
My point being was going.
But
point was going to be Usain
stuff
Bolt
is
will
good.
blow everybody away on a track, but doesn't mean the other runners are bad. You know what I mean? They're still Olympians. But yeah,
Right.
what I'm saying is Paul Bettany is the Usain Bolt of the Marvel universe.
Man, that's got to be a harsh blow for certain fast individuals in that universe.
Oh man, I love it. It's definitely took a minute to convince me that it was going to be very good. Oh, I Love Lucy's owned by CBS. That's the next acquisition target. It's gonna be weird when Star Trek and Star Wars are all owned by Disney.
Would that be a good thing for Star Trek
To be owned by Disney?
Probably, right?
Nah,
Maybe?
probably not.
Yeah, they might kill it because they think Star Wars is too popular.
Or push it in a direction. I don't know. Yeah. Speaking of Star Trek,
I don't know. I have. Yeah.
Likely before this podcast has aired, so you should go find it. A new episode of Subspace Transmissions should be up with our most recent Star Trek Discovery watch.
Yes. Oh man. People should definitely check that out. And other favorite pastime of this podcast will be out shortly after this episode airs. Blaseball is coming back March 1st.
Okay, we've got give me the 5-minute sales pitch to get me back into Blaseball.
So remember that thing that was good last year where we watched fake internet absurdist baseball where there were like 7 runs?
So that happened
base and
exactly at the moment I needed it to. And I'm not sure that I need what I had then.
yes. What if it was still doing all of that, but they spent a bunch of time making it good so their website works better? And also wrote a bunch of good storylines and stuff now so that they can have them play out and don't have to like make it up
one
on the
of the
fly
things
anymore.
about that was good was that the storylines didn't exist and it was all happening outside of it, and I would get text messages from you saying what had happened to Jessica Telephone in the lore that was made up on Discord.
I think a lot of that also is still happening, but obviously because it was on this giant pause, right? Like there's nothing to do. I think they did a lot of alternate universe stuff during the pause. That Blaseball musical did come out, and it's not that bad.
I had the name for the podcast this entire podcast, and now you've told me there's a Blaseball musical?
Yeah, it was put together by I don't know who. There's a lot of artists involved, but they made it in like a ludicrously short amount of time, like 2 months or something, from nothing to putting out an hour and 10 minute long.
If we're talking internet
musical thing.
musicals, that Ratatouille musical is actually good.
That is what I've heard.
It's a
should go see
TikTok
this.
musical, buddy. They basically took like some person, I don't remember the name of it, spearheaded like different sections of the movies. They just went off the movie, and so they're like, somebody needs to write a song for this, somebody needs to write a song for this, somebody needs to write a song for this. And then they just took the best ones.
And that's like, this is not too far from that. It's like, it's on Bandcamp and YouTube and all kinds of places, and you could just I had it on while I was playing a game. It's like an hour and 10 minutes long. It's just a bunch of songs about the brother of our favorite Jessica Telephone. Right. So
in the meantime, man, we talked about a lot. If you have insider info as to the reorganization of Blizzard and what they're actually working on.
Yeah, you can send that to podcast@weweregamers.com. We will keep your identity a secret because no one knows who we are, so they can't come after us.
And we've got 248 episodes of journalistic integrity to fall back on when we keep your name a secret.
Yeah, man. We will certainly protect your anonymity if you choose to trust us with it. Also, you can find us on social media. We're at We Were Gamers on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all kinds of places. And I am hearing from a certain other member of this podcast that episode 250 on YouTube might be really cool.
Didn't commit too harsh.
That's impressive.
Uh-oh.
Who knows? We'll see what it is. Maybe it will, maybe it won't be. But, you have to check it to find out.
Beautiful.